Nico, you had mentioned something about a fun Christmas fly for the club, so I'm going to do that. Now, this fly is totally made up off the top of my head right here, right now. And it's part of what we would call the rat series. It's a salmon fly. Salmon flies look graceful. It's Christmas time, so we want something pretty decorative. And what we're looking for here is a rat series fly, except I'm going to put a muddler head on the end of it. Let's begin with... And also, I should mention that this is a little bit complicated for some of the beginners. In fact, it's a lot complicated for some of the beginners. But it's a fun fly to tie, and you can try it if you wish. And those with a little more experience, they might enjoy it a little bit more or have a little bit more fun with it. Okay, I just coated the shank with thread. I'm going to run up to the eye and then back down one more time. That's so the materials have something to grip. Okay, you really don't like to put materials on a perfectly smooth shank. You want to do something with it, and putting thread on it is a good way to get started. Okay, so with a salmon fly, we have these things called tags and butts, and what we're going to begin with is a little bit of tinsel here on the tag end. This is Mirage tinsel. I was thinking of going with silver, but I decided not to. It's kind of traditional with salmon flies to tie at the bottom of the hook. Now, from this point, I'm actually going to tie backwards. So I'm going to leave myself 6, 7 turns of thread for the red part of the butt here, or the red tag, I should say. And I'm going to take 3 turns backwards with the Mirage, and then I'm going to wrap back forward again right to the tying point that I was just at. Now, when you tie salmon flies, you don't trim right next to where you tied in. You shouldn't do that for trout flies either. What we're going to do is work our way up the shank all the way back to the eye. I'm being a little bit quick about it because I'm making a video here. If I was tying this to catch fish and to be durable, I would, without a doubt, be putting each thread turn next to each other. But I'm not really worried about that because this fly doesn't have to fish particularly well. The reason you always bring it down and back is if you're going to put a floss body or a tinsel body on something, you want it to be smooth. And you want all the turns next to each other. If you stop at a certain point, it'll create a bump. And if you don't have the turns next to each other, it'll create a bump. But I'm not worried about that because the only area where we're going to have a floss body where you would be able to pick up bumps is where I did do the turns next to each other. The only spot with a floss body is from here back. Okay, so traditional to tie in your materials on the bottom of the hook. Okay, and then I'm going to wrap the floss back to the tinsel and then forward. The floss is a little beat up here, but that's all right. You can see the little Christmassy color starting to come in there. Okay, let's see if I can pull these forward, these little 8th graders that don't want to do what they're supposed to do. All right. Again, only because I'm not worried about what the body's going to be like am I taking these big, almost palmar turns up the body. This is all going to be hidden, and usually I wouldn't do that, but in this case I don't have a problem with it at all. Okay, and I put them a little bit closer on the way back. Don't worry about my dog barking back there. It's not in this room. You want this red tag to, or the red, I'm sorry, you want this tail to come basically to the bend of the hook. And that way they form a symmetry, kind of making the sides of a heart, if you can imagine it there. Okay. There we go. Oh, I love these large spools of tinsel. When you can find them and it's quality stuff, French tinsels, buy them when you can find them. They're not always easy to find. Once in a while I come across some. And being the fly tying hoarder that I am, I grab right away. Notice how it's at the bottom of the shank. All right. Now, in my mind, I'm going to start dividing the shank up into 40%, 40%, 20%. So 20% is about a fifth. So from here forward, I'm going to save for a deer hair head. So this puts here in the middle. So I want to be right about here where I end the next part of the fly. So since I'm dubbing, I'll come to here. And I'm going to keep dubbing with this color. So ice dub in color Pearl. I'm splitting it in half here so that I can lay it next to each other, get about the same lengths. I left my dubbing brush over here, and I want to show you something with that dubbing brush that's pretty cool. So, let me grab it. Here we go. A little bit of a technique with a dubbing brush that a lot of people don't use. Okay. There's my loop. Now, especially with tying nymphs, I like to do a dubbing brush because I like a spiky body. But some people will spin the brush now and the material tends to fly all over the place. And we'll still get a little of that. But instead what I'm going to do is pinch the thread. Okay? And then spin the bobbin. Notice nothing's moving yet. And then boom. See how we get that nice thing done? And then I usually do one more. Pinch the thread. Alright. And then you can brush this out a little bit. So I can reach over and grab that. Pick it out a little bit. All right. So ordinarily I would use my bobbin spinning tool, or my third hand if you will, and spin this. But I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to wrap by hand. And I'm going to wrap down and back. Again, all I'm looking for is Christmassy kind of colors here. Go, picking that up, same thing, and then wrap forward, a little bit sparse. I'm going to put a little bit more in there on the end, just because I think it's a little bit sparse. Lock it in. Let me see. Yeah, just a little bit. It's not quite as smooth as I would want it to be. So, this one I will just twist up like that. Again, it's just a decorative fly. I would not have done that were this a fishing fly. Okay, I'm wrapping it back until I get to about that 40% mark, because I want, there we go, I want this body to be about the same length as the Peacock Girl that I'm about to put in front. Now with the Peacock Girl, I always like to have red thread underneath the Peacock Girl. So I will finish this off, 2, 3, 4. Okay, a little bit of red thread for the Peacock Girl. Okay, get rid of that. And now, nice piece of Peacock Girl, grab some nice thick stuff. Warren Duncan, whose classes I took multiple times, would just wrap the Peacock Girl around the body. I don't tend to do that. I like to twist it into, again, something similar to a dubbing loop. Here we go here. take a couple of turns of this. Go up to here. Lay it in, because the Rat series of flies is famous for this particular piece here. Okay. All right, now I take a couple of gentle twists, not too much. Wrap once, then twist again, wrap. And now I can begin to twist it a little bit tighter. First couple of turns should never be that tight. Okay. My proportions are a little bit off on this, but what do you expect the first time that you ever tied anything? There we go. Here we go. Okay. By the way, this was just 4 strands of red floss hanging out over the back. Oh. I'm going to switch to the thread I'm going to use for the deer hair. This is Semper Fly Nano. Great thread for working with deer hair. All right, so I'm going to do 5 turns of this. Why 5? Because that's what salmon tires do. 1, 2. We'll go right through that joint there. 3, 4, 5. Oh. They should be pretty even. There we go. 5. Excellent. I like to take 2 or 3 turns with the tinsel here so I don't ever worry about it pulling out. It really gets locked in there. If you just take 1 turn, it can slip out. Okay. Take your floss, go halfway down the tail, trim. And now, last but not least on this particular fly, the deer hair head. So, I want to get this real short little clump of deer hair right here. On the top of the shank. I'll turn it over, I'll put a similar clump on the bottom of the shank. That seems to be spinning all around. Okay, now this is what we call stacking. I'm just going to put more deer hair on top of more deer hair. I don't want to use too much because I don't want to crowd that eye too much. So I place some deer hair on top, support the hook here, pull down a little bit, wrap through it twice. I like to go then what I call an anchor wrap, which is like a figure 8. See, I'm coming forward and then toward the back, pull down, to the back, to the forward, pull down. And now I do the same thing on the bottom. Okay. A little too thick. There we go, that should be good. pushing it, but it should be good. Okay, a little anchor wrap in there. I only do the anchor wraps on the base set so that doesn't move. Okay, and then just wind your thread forward through here. Okay. Whip finish time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pull straight back, get that to slide a little bit underneath the deer hair. Cut off the thread. So now I like to do a rough trim with my scissors. First off, you see how we have like kind of a hackle with the deer hair tips? I come back in here and I get underneath and trim, and that'll expose the peacock roll body. Okay, and now I just trimmed forward to the head a little bit. There we go. Again, this is a very rough trim, okay? My first cut usually goes along the bottom. Then we'll go along the top. As you can see, they kind of make an angle. And then along the sides. So if you look at it, I kind of have a little bit of a pyramid type shape without coming all the way to a point. And now I just smooth the edges. It's a little awkward for me to hold the deer hair out over the hook area. I'm just not used to it. Okay. And there is a nice Christmassy rat. I got one little 8th grader here, doesn't want to go where he's supposed to go. The last thing we can do is dig out a little area for eyeballs. All right. This is E6000. It's as good a stuff as I've ever used to keep eyes in there. If I was making this to truly fish, I would also put a coat of Solaris Flex on top of it and a little bit of bone dry, as that'll really lock it in place and it won't go anywhere. Well, that's an overstatement. If I was fishing it, it'll last a really long time. Okay, and then an eyeball on each side. And there we have it.